I was talking to a guy when I was in New York, a very successful entrepreneur in the data security space, and he was like, if I meet anyone, or even he sometimes goes through his contact book and he goes, okay, this person's involved in X, this person's remotely interested in X, I'll just connect them. And again, if they don't meet or there's no value, no problem. But the few times when that hits, something big can happen.
You could possibly just find the yin and the yang and make something really cool happen. When you started YouTube, that's when we really kind of got to talking and throwing ideas around, and then we landed on birth of Grafton Digital, and the story continues from there. I suppose it's the beauty of it is not knowing what the outcome will be, but like you're willing to walk the journey and build your own story to in the future tell to other people. I think it's what the hardest things is when you're not seeing somebody every day, just periodically. It's just hard to visualize what's being done. Is it as productive? I personally think the best hours are the hours you do spend at a desk and you're actually focused in on it, but that's just my opinion. Some people just work better at home when there's peace and quiet and there's nobody coming into them. But I think hybrid is ultimately where most people, by the sound of things, enjoy working. Hey everybody, welcome back to Built From Scratch, episode 20. My name is Erik, I'm 24 years old. I run a company called Grafton Digital where we do enterprise digital transformations, and I'm also involved in Olive for Education. I'm their COO. Myself and Daragh also co-founded a brand called Sky Park, where we've created a successful car park in Galway city centre. So me and Daragh were involved in that.
So my name is Daragh. I'm a 23-year-old from Galway here in Ireland. I co-founded Grafton Digital with Erik. I exited last year to build Magnate, which is the smartest and fastest messaging platform, which we're launching very shortly. We have Sky Park together and we've got the podcast. So that's kind of what we're involved with.
We've got a lot going on.
Yeah, and the car park really popping off at the moment.
It is, absolutely. I think it's parking season. There's been just a lot of positive movements towards, if you have a car park, car parking is a very dear possession in one way or another, because the demand for it is massive in Galway town anyways, or Galway city. I think Galway is a town more of, but it's probably up for debate in one way or another. Yeah,
well, I think the thing for us was just for anyone interested in business, our one restriction with Sky Park is that we had to do pre-bookings. So it was just tactically trying to figure out where the best pressure point was for getting in and actually integrating who's willing to always pre-book
their arrival. Because when we tried the whole hourly pre-booking, I don't think we tried long enough, but the culture wasn't there for people. Like, it's probably different in Manhattan or different cities where they're a little bit different culturally, where they like to pre-plan, whereas Galway people seem to just like to arrive and just park pretty much. And we had to bring people onto the whole digital platform, which we manage all our pre-bookings, renewals through. So it was just a whole different concept. And Airbnbs were a massive unlock of opportunity. We've got partnerships with companies, partnerships with a gym coming to Galway. So it's so diverse in one way or another, and it just allows us to learn from how we've set this up, and then know that it's okay, if you want to change culture, you got to wait a long time, or you're going to go deeper and find ways to solve that pain quicker. So it's just, it really depends on it. But how was your week last week, Daragh?
It was good. For context, guys, we did 10 minutes of recording. And one of our computers...
My computer went out of memory,
but my week was good last week. We have made good progress on V1 development of Magnate.
Which I'm a user of now.
Yeah, so Erik's now using Magnate. So... Again, we're going to be taking on about 10 plus people onto the platform for V1 this coming week, and then rolling up to about 100 before we go launch, because I think the beautiful thing in software is that it needs to be world class. We want to bring it to the world, and everything needs to be slick. So to make good progress with that, the podcast we recorded in the studio, we had issues with production, so we can't do that, but we got announced as one of the top 50 student entrepreneurial businesses, so we're currently applying to try and get to top 10, which then has some prizes. There's a few other stuff I'm applying for at the moment as well, but we got shortlisted for that, which was a fun one. I'm under TU Dublin with that. Actually, someone who's on the category with me is the guy Sear Water, you know,
Ryan, he brands water, and
he was like, he does no paid advertisement. I'm like, Ryan, I've seen your stuff so many times. Every time you partner with a company, I see it. I'm like, your organic reach is insane. But he was on the call with me. I'm like, I know your business. I've seen you all over LinkedIn. But yeah, no, primarily, and it's two chats with two really cool entrepreneurs. One around our age, one a good bit older than us. It's just in really cool spaces.
We could say that you've met the local Elon Musk.
Yeah, like he is kind of space area, and such a cool dude. 11 years in business and just doing really cool things behind the scenes. So would love to talk more about it. I can't on the internet, but I find walking away from those sort of conversations, I feel really fired up. I'm like, wow, you're a really impressive person, you know, and like obviously you have your kind of core other entrepreneur friends, which we usually end up, I think a lot of our pals being entrepreneurs are much older than us. We don't usually, and not because we think whatever, it just happens a lot of our pals are kind of older entrepreneurs that kind of have the bumps and bruises.
Usually they're customers or friends of investors, partners, or there's always some sort of a shared in between there, that it just helps us bond quicker, and there's trust to be built that way. And like what I find is when you're meeting, like I think the first time we all meet, higher caliber individuals are like, first it's like, oh my god, I just met a millionaire. Like remember the first time we met someone and we're like geeking out. It was like super cool. It was like we want to be like this person one day. And it just really fires you up that it's like it's more relatable. Sometimes if you meet a younger person, harder to relate if you meet an older person, because we're in our 20s figuring it out and building businesses. But I find it super interesting as well when I meet somebody and I'm like, oh my god, they're like that much ahead of me, and like they're maybe that much older, but like I can learn so much from this person, or this person can help me potentially get an introduction or figure things out better. So it's like I think true entrepreneurs are connectors, and they will help you find the right path, or guide you towards the right path anyways. With either advice or personal connections to make what you are in the mission of happen quicker.
Yeah. No, like even I was talking to a guy when I was in New York, a very successful entrepreneur in the data security space, and he was like, if I meet anyone, or even sometimes he goes through his contact book and he goes, okay, this person's involved in X, this person's remotely interested in X, I'll just connect them. And again, if they don't meet or there's no value, no problem. But the few times when that hits, something big can happen.
Oh my God, you could possibly just find the yin and the yang and make something really cool happen.
Yeah, and he's like in business, I think he's like, as an entrepreneur, it's so essential that he's like that I just do that over and over again. And you've always been very good at that. I've done that a couple of times recently where I've gone, okay, let's just say you're interested in US funding. I know someone who's raised a good bit of money in the US. Cool, to connect. And again, if it goes great. If it doesn't go great, fine. People spend 30 minutes. Could be an interesting chat. And I've really started to lean into doing that because I've had people do that for me a good bit recently, and it's had amazing payoffs or whatever. And again, even like I have a meeting hopefully next week with first kind of completely random company from Magnate, really is a messaging problem, and I'm sitting down with them, which I'm really excited to do because they're on a real hot streak right now as a company. It was via a relationship with a connector, and they were like, hey, this person walked past us, we're having a coffee, and like, hey, meet this person, Grant, we have such an issue with messaging, we're scaling like mad, we need something, cool, let's go in, have a chat. So yeah, no, I think connecting a business is the best thing to be known for, and you've been really good at that for years, to be fair.
And I think it's like you kind of have to embrace the fact that you will have negative conversations or negative connections, but like you gotta just kind of roll with the punches there and either move on or like it's not like you have to go marry this person that you're talking to. But like I just know that I think the best things that can happen to an entrepreneur is meeting somebody that can motivate them or point them in the right direction. And like sometimes that's like one of the best partnerships can happen is when you're kind of doing a blind date as an entrepreneur. It's funny, me and you never had a blind date before we got into business. For context, me and Daragh went to school together and would have like known of each other, I'd say 6 years, like you done TY transition year. And like we would have only, like when you started YouTube, that's when we really kind of got to talking and throwing ideas around, and then we landed on, birth of Grafton Digital, and the story continues from there. I suppose it's the beauty of it is not knowing what the outcome will be, but like you're willing to walk the journey and build your own story to in the future tell to other people.
Yeah, no, 100%. And you look pretty cool this week. So you obviously had a team day last week. I'd love you to kind of walk through for people what you're doing with that. But so like I'd love you to talk a little bit, because I feel like there's a lot of talk at the moment as well around hybrid work, remote work, and in office work. Now, you obviously have two locations. You have Dublin and Galway. Now, I think you have another location as well in Kilkenny. But across a couple of companies that all they obviously do a lot of work together because there's a lot of overlap. One, how is it bringing everyone together and seeing the interactions? And two, how have you found trying to cultivate them working together with a lot of them never actually meeting and actually having that trust? Because, a lot of stuff being moved through the companies, a lot of fast scaling going on as well.
100%. I think, and so like last Wednesday we brought Dublin together, the education team, and then Galway together, the service team, Grafton Digital. Just kind of said, why don't we bring everybody on a massive kind of team building day, where we've had a workshop about the organization, org charts, challenges, openly discussing plans we had to get staff feedback. Think we've even discussed things like returning to the office in a non-forceful way, because like what we know that the people that work in our companies, are very much owners. Like they understand where their time has to go. We don't need to, look at, babysitting them or telling them you need to come every Thursday to the office or you're fired. We don't have that sort of culture. We have a very open relationship. And as the videographer on the day described to me, it was like a family. It was like walking into a family atmosphere. And at the time the videographer came in, like we started the team day at 10 o'clock. This was probably at 11 o'clock. It was only like an hour of the teams bonding, and people met, other people that they've only seen on Teams in the background or seen on email chains that they never really got to know them. So it was funny. It was really interesting to see groups forming. Yeah. Whether it's departments, whether it's interest, but people were like forming groups when we're doing we've done a thing where we walked and got a coffee. So it just allowed everybody to kind of chat and break into different groups, get to know one another. Just new people coming in. We welcomed 3 new members to the team in the recent weeks, and it was just nice for them to quickly get an insight to both, location, history, and the people of the companies. Because I think culture can make or break a company in one way or another. Because this, like the way we've always built up Grafton Digital was an environment we like to work in, and where others succeed and thrive as well as us. Yeah. So it was always it was never like this boss-employee relationship. We've always had a very leveled approach, and people knew where they could come to for, advice or pit stops or permission. And that developed over the course of the years, and it just became much better. And that just meant that you created an environment where people were empowered to make decisions, do what they're looking to do, and do all that. To come to the point of, returning in office, managing hybrid, it's not easy. One of the points we put across during the workshop was, we would love to see departments coming together more regularly, where they're meeting, discussing things. We don't need to be involved in that. That could be an outing between the 3 offices or a separate location. That's up to you guys to kind of decide where, when, and how. There's no there's guidelines on what we would like those workshops to be, and you should represent progress, innovation, and learn from mistakes. So learning, it's all about that collaborative learning. I think it's very hard to stop, take a break, and focus on where we were last year, where we are now, and then where we're going. I think that's a lot of people, even me, I get so stuck in the today, and I'm always looking to get better and better. But if you don't just take the last few months and make learnings out of that and look at where we can improve it, then it's just going to be endless pacing, and you're just going to never find the true orientation pack for the future onboarding of either Olive for Education or Grafton Digital. So I think it's very important to set good culture. It's very important to build environment where people can, choose and manage their own time. Yeah. In that sense. So I found I love the office. I thrive best in the office, but I love offsites. I work in coffee shops. I do a co-working day with you every other Friday. I like to place myself in different places as well. Yeah. So we allow, everybody knows where they have to be and when they have to be somewhere else. So that's something that we just left pretty open. We didn't have challenges with it. Now, previously, remember when we've had, like when we switched to hybrid first, or went fully remote, when we went fully remote, we actually had great problems with some younger employees not clocking in, not working, telling lies and doing different things. And what that meant, that was actually a very poor experience for us, because we're very trusting people. You and me never go, we're not micromanagers in the fact of we're continuously looking at where you are at. Are you on target? Are you off target? You're gone over budget. We always learn to work with our team. So it was very disappointing when other people took advantage of our hospitality in that fact. And we didn't let that couple of people ruin, I suppose, our hospitality and how we've thought business was positive and how we thought business was good. But it definitely, that definitely exists out there. And your job is to, I suppose, create a culture and, make sure that everybody follows what they are supposed to be doing in one way or another. And I think ultimately, as the company grows, you need to give empowerment of managers and, kind of department leads to make those decisions on the macro and micro pace, and they should consult with you more regularly, because all the team wants to do is get on and do better service and to allow more customers to experience what we're doing. All they're looking to do is progress. So, but it's our job to give the guiding light and give everybody a success to upskill, get a promotion down the line. But it's all to do with, I think it's what the hardest things is when you're not seeing somebody every day. It's just and you're seeing them, like periodically. It's just hard to visualize what's being done. Is it as productive? I personally think the best hours are the hours you do spend at a desk and you're actually focused in on it. But that's just my opinion. Some people just work better at home when there's peace and quiet and there's nobody coming into them. So, but I think hybrid is ultimately where most people, by the sound of things, enjoy working.
No, I think the culture piece is huge. And I even anyone that's taking advantage, talking about your point about the remote. I remember there's one team member, there's a couple of team members, but one in particular that
took the piss.
But one way or another. But again, like, I think this is why, for me anyways, whenever I'm interviewing team members, the first interview, even for Magna, anyone we brought on, like, the first interview is always cultural check. It's always like, what's this person like value-wise? Tell me stories about certain characteristics. I listen really closely to, do they blame people? Do they take full accountability? Do they problem solve? Like, with that problem solving, tell me exactly what you did and what did your team do? Because, like, you'd be so surprised, after a couple of those questions and people tell stories and really think back, my manager was the mistake for that, and that's why that went wrong. Because I go, like, what was your biggest failure in your career and how did you handle it? Or, like, tell me an example where it's really tight to the wire problem solving and you problem solved it. I'll ask for really specific questions, because you'll be surprised, you'll just hear hints of people going, like, either taking full accountability or passing it off, or going, hey, I lost that weekend, not a problem, love making sure that I do a good job. And it's like little things I listen for that actually can play through so much. And usually when you have a bad initial culture call, I'll call it very fast. I won't even give them a technical interview, because you'll actually hear most of what you need to hear in that first chat if it's like 30-ish minutes. But with regards to hybrid, I think listening to a lot of the tech companies, I still like the idea, especially now, again, you're talking more about a scale up, I'm talking about a startup. I think for a startup, I like the idea of having them as close as possible, because I think, especially in a startup, everything's moving so fast and everything's this like tight bubble and you're trying to do something really difficult, and I like the idea of being able to bounce. Like, Aaron and I basically work side by side every day, and it's like we talk every day. The lads do kind of daily stand-ups, even any of the guys are a little further afield. But I think to get out of that initial piece and try and get pace, I like the idea of it. But again, I understand for like longer term scale up, hybrid's probably where things are going to fall, because that also you need to be competitive for hiring, because when you're hiring,
super competitive,
like no more than like say trying to win customers, you're trying to win good team members, and like
100%.
pay packets is only one element of that. And again, it's where you're working, what are your extra perks, like what are your flexibility, and like you and I have never really been micromanagers, because by the time we interview you, we trust you. Like,
trust you.
You get 110% trust, and it's your actions that can shave that away.
100%. And just want to make 2 points. Like, the first thing is, I think that, like, I remember when we were doing our first couple of interviews, like, you were extremely good at picking up on these things. And I remember there was particularly one employee where this is really shined through, where there was spelling mistake in the CV, and then he was late to the meeting, the interview as such. And I remember you called it. You said, punctuality and attention to detail. Yeah. And I remember I was like, no, let's hire him. I see vision in him and everything. And you were like, fine, let's do it. And we actually lost a customer because we were late in production, and also there was a lot of spelling mistakes, and he was driving you bananas. And I was like, that's where I learned, like, trends are so important from that initial impression. Whether, like, are they showing up? If you're interviewing for a sales role and they show up in a hoodie, is that do you want a person with a hoodie representing your company? If you're a sports brand, maybe, right? But if you're maybe a professional services company, you probably expect shirt and tie attire. So it's very important for you to make those initial impressions and show trust, leadership, ownership, and accountability in your interview. Because I see this when we are hiring. The number one reason why people are changing jobs, right, or changing career paths potentially, or optimizing your career path, is actually because there's nowhere for them to grow in their current role. And that really inspires me as a founder to create road and opportunity for everybody equally to grow in, right? Like, one of the biggest things where an organization, I think, goes stagnant is when management is so solid that there's no uprise in ranks. And then the org chart just gets so stuck in this, every day is the same day and same out, and people get bored. Yeah. And we're very lucky now that there's been a lot of change in the tech sphere, right? And people are now more open to the fact of changing, possibly lowering their pay expectation, but increasing their career progression by changing their roles and seeing the potential. And your job is to sell the vision and mission, but also to vet, is that person the right person to carry your flag to victory? Yeah. Because, like, you're kind of doing it together, and it's really important that everybody will be a solid part of the wheel. Especially, doesn't matter, in my opinion, if you're a startup or scale up, your people are everything. Yeah, 100%. And at the end of the day, like, yes, you can be the best tech person in the world, but if you've got no personality, accountability, or ownership, we don't want you. Yeah, we want people that are people. Yeah. If that makes sense. Like, you want somebody that's going to be part of this, that's willing to take the extra slack for one another, or willing to say, hey, I messed up. Yeah. Right? Because it's actually, like, I've never minded people messing up or, going over budget, as long as there was a solid explanation. B, I like a pre-warning that we're about to hit a curb or or a brick wall. I admire people trying, but actually asking for help takes a lot of courage, especially to senior management. But I suppose my point being is, spot the trends, set the trends early. If you're coming into an interview, impress the person across you. I think that's really important. And I'm really about, like, now that it's all about, how do you create progression for one another? How do you let people get exposed to the sunshine so they grow? So, like, because if your people are just there to you're just hiring people that are not going to progress, you're going to expect that result as well as part of it. That that particular team member is just not going to go the extra notch. They have no incentive. They have nothing to work towards. And I think it's all about, like, what are we working towards? It's always like that sort of component, I think, is just super important. Yeah, and like the way I like to describe, like, an initial job interviews is like a first date. That's the best version. On paper, that should be the best. Hey, I'm ordering chicken wings on my first date. And if you're going, that's your problem. Yeah, but like, if you can't even for your initial
email, spell things correctly. If I catch that you are using US English in your cover letter and you haven't even bothered,
and you know it's ChatGPT, and you see the Z's of
or you're not on time, I go, if this is the best you've got, it only goes downhill when they get comfortable. So I'm like,
that's so true.
I really, 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 I'm very particular about that. And I really pay attention to it. Because like, if I'm selling to a customer, like, I check that email numerous times. I make sure I'm on time. I make sure I'm well prepped. Like we talked about earlier, if I'm going to meet someone, whether it be a fellow entrepreneur or potential customer, like when I have that sales meeting next week, by God will I know inside and out of that company. I'm well researched, because when I walk in there, I'm going to know exactly what's going on.
I remember, like, I had to learn that from you at the start, because like, you've always had such high standards and 100% in everything we've done. And I feel like at the start in 2018, 2019, not to say I wasn't striving for high standards, but I was just ticking the boxes a lot of times. And you got particularly upset by that, because you're like there needs to be a standard followed, and the minute that like switched, I feel like I've progressed so much faster.
Agreed.
So, and the business then followed, and then everything else followed in the meantime. But it's like you've always been a perfectionist in that fact, and you've always, like, you were able to take a bullet or like a bit of pain temporarily for a long-term gain. You know, and to quote you, you always say, like, it's, 10-20 year game, and not a 1 to 2 year game for you. So like, it's cool to also see what we've started at the start has now matured into something. Cool. And seeing people come into the business, seeing the culture getting on, people progressing up the ranks that it's like a really positive feeling. But if you don't pick these people that are the right people at the start, or you don't help them to be the right person now, then it's just going to become this, I think, ultimate path to pain for both sides. You know? I
totally agree. And one I loved that I heard is, like, with your company, you need to build, the company vision needs to be so big that your team can build their dreams inside of it. Because they need to see their path to progression. It talks about what you're talking about is, okay, I'm currently, let's just say I come into Grafton Digital, I'm a junior developer. I want to see a path where maybe I'll have a flair for AI. I want to be the AI guy for Grafton. Okay, cool. I can see the path over the next couple of years where I can be that person. Or you come in as a PM and you go, okay, I'd love to be director of operations one day. Where's that path? And like, I think it's really important that the company vision is so big. And it's one thing I love with regards any sort of venture. It's like, okay, how can I create this huge vision that people get fired up about, that they can see a path over a 5 to 10 year period for their dream role inside of that. They might not love the role today, they've got the skill to have the role today, but they absolutely see a growth path where they see a perfect role that one competence them well, they love doing, and actually gets them fired up and they dream about. I think is really cool.
Absolutely. And I think, like, one of the, and I still believe fundamentally a CEO is different to an entrepreneur.
Totally.
It's okay for the entrepreneur to be the CEO, but it's very hard to find that characteristic and, to be an entrepreneur. Yeah. And I think an entrepreneur's job is to find further opportunity and is to accelerate it. And a CEO's job is to represent it. Every day of the week, whether it's internal or external. They're there in your corner, fight for you, and your job is to get the bigger fights in the door and get bigger scale for your business. But like, in order to do that, you need excellence in your organization that you can, how should I say it? Because I think it doesn't matter what stage of business you are, you always will get that phone call. But it's that trust and peace in the organization that I think every entrepreneur wishes for, is that, like, when you don't get the phone call from that angry customer 5 years ago because they're no longer getting that service, and you got to then pick up the phone, like, guys, what's going on here for this guy? So it's like, we're all striving for that excellence, is that you don't get those phone calls and nobody's complaining just because you got bigger. Because fundamentally, where a lot of businesses lose reputation is when they're scaling. And that scale, the pace and the attitude and the team and the investment that you're putting behind it all will really determine if your customers will love you or hate you going forward. And that's why it's like, the way we're scaling is we're setting, I will say, speed limits. of like, we're like, for our education business, we're only onboarding so many customers, and we have a visual representation of what we think our capacity is, and we're trying to come close to that, because you don't want to be a big bubble, because I could leave the doors open here and take on hundreds of customers, and then do a terrible service and flop. And like, again, it's a short-term gain. So it's like, you want to build a business that's always thinking about, how do we progress? How do we not fall into the same little, booby trap that everyone else falls into? So it's like, guys, come on, let's take a step back. Let's limit our growth. How lucky are you to say, let's limit our growth?
Yeah.
For quality. Because like, if you're in the service space, which I'm in, that's the most important thing. Doesn't matter if you're profitable, non-profitable, if you're scaling, non-scale. It's your current customers, are they satisfied? Are they loyal? What's their retention like? Are they going to just leave because another provider is cheaper? Yeah. Usually, if you're good quality, I'm telling you, people are not going to leave.
Yeah.
So I think competency in that level is very important.
And again, that comes from an excellence, and that starts all with, one, I think, founder attitude, and then the initial hires, and then that
100%.
And as you're scaling up, then you're depending on, like you're talking there about, like your team leads now deciding on hires and who to hire, and ensuring that you have the faith that they will continue the culture that's been set, and that's unbelievably difficult. But
I think it is mentally difficult to accept it.
Yeah.
Because I think entrepreneurs are very controlling by nature, and they like to manage everything and be on everything and be involved in everything. And I think it's really hard transition to move from being inside the business to trying to get that bird's eye view, to be, outside of the business and, guide the progress and look at the next opportunity, the next trends and everything like that. And I'm still learning the ropes on that, and quite enjoyed, but it makes you a little bit always anxious, and I think in your stomach as a founder, because you're like, it's my baby. I'm now sending my kid to school.
Yeah.
And in the school there'll be 7 or 8 subject teachers, and one will believe in X, one will tell them Y, and and it's like, you cannot stop progress, or you cannot stop the whole maturing of like an org. It's the same thing like a child. And like right now I'm like, well, I'm letting it being shaped by the initial people, the new people, and the future people, and I just have to let that go. And it's a tough feeling, because you're like, ooh, what's going to happen here? Are they going to go? But I've been super blessed in a way that the people I have brought in are like awesome. They're top notch, so upwards and onwards, as they say.
You're doing great progress. I think we've got time for one topic. I actually would love to touch on funding a little bit, because we were just talking about topics beforehand. So I suppose, for context for anyone listening with Magnate, to date, we have been I've self-funded from my own money, and then we've got some grants that I've won along the way as well. And I definitely, going from bootstrapping with Grafton, I definitely didn't understand the whole world of raising money, and I've really deep dived into that over the last year while building product, because I've had a good bit of time to market research. Because it's understand the landscape and the problem of your business, then understanding the funding landscape is really important as well. And I flip-flopped is a good bit, but where I've really landed is that with Magnate is, we're probably 2 months away from revenue generating, where the product I think is good enough where I think it can revenue generate and can really add it really good value. So my desire is to try and get up to break even as fast as possible once revenue generating, because if the product is good enough, I believe it should be able to do so. And then the raise should be tactical for probably US expansion is probably what I'm going to raise for, to accelerate that, because you can do it off cash flow, but you can do it faster if you raise. But I know, Erik, through some of your ventures you've raised recently, I'd love to hear, because obviously you've done it internationally as well, not just nationally. How has your raising journey been? How have you found that you've gone different routes of raising money as well? I think it'd be really curious to kind of break down in the detail that you can do about money you've raised, how you found the experience, because you've done this all within the last 6 or 7 months as well. So I'd love to hear you kind of talk about the landscape of that, because I think it'd be very valuable to people listening.
I think raising money in general, there's 2 types of money. I need to figure it out money, or I've figured it out and I need to grow it money. And one is cheaper than the other one, right? So I think like startups are in that I need to figure it out phase. And I think you've done it really smartly. And I like you that you said self-funding. I think more and more entrepreneurs should use self-funding if you're backing your own cash, with, you know, your own horse with your own cash. I think then that I've figured it out money is like when your business is a bit more mature, or like your objectives are much more clear, or that what you're doing is that much more transparent and in front of you. Because as you know, when you start like an idea, it's like great for you, it's great for the next 3 people, but is it good for the next 3,000-4,000 people? Yeah. And I think that's kind of the thinking pattern you need to do. I found like when we've recently raised funding, I found it both easy and difficult. Easy in the fact of the business we've had was, you know, quite successful, and the pattern of success. It's easy to fundraise, I think, when you're winning. Yeah. And it was more of a reactive and a proactive fundraiser at the same time. So I'm not saying we weren't like in massive need of it, but if we didn't get it, we would have survived. However, getting we were able to do things much faster. So I think what money gets you is speed, right? The money we've gotten wasn't like strategic money in any sense. It was money to grow and thrive and to accelerate growth. So it wasn't like, for our objective, it wasn't to get people to direct us in different fields or to connect us faster. It was exactly to serve our needs that we knew we needed. And that allowed us to now scale up much quicker. Was able to spend money on hiring for you know, stock, for service, for everything that you need in order to do it. And our offering relied on capital to be able to do this. So for me, one of the number one things that I've learned from it, it's the way you position yourself for funding is probably the most important part. And I know people people have to pick their battles in terms of fundraising. And I'm probably more leaning towards raise faster now that I've done it, rather than keep building and keep doing it. But if I'm on the investor level, I like to see people do more and more and more. So it just depends what seat you're kind of sitting in. But from the seat I was sitting in, now I'm like, oh my God, I actually kind of waste time not fundraising, because I am depending totally on the company's progress rather than my vision and my energy. And I think founders really need that vision and energy boost. And to give you kind of an overview, the way we fundraised was we've gone into some funds. These funds were particularly interested in certain growth, certain market. So, and I think I would very much incentivize people to talk to pension funds or insurance funds if they're looking to fundraise and they're looking for probably, you know, a medium sum of money. You know, I'm not saying small amount, a medium sum of money. And they're willing to give, you know, like a lower return, to 5 to 10 to 13% return per every 3 years or per every 5 years, depending on the term sheets. But that I thought was a little bit of a genius, kind of a little bit of a hack to find that you can go to these pension and insurance funds. They do place a percentage of their customers' monies in companies more established, but sometimes they go for companies that are on the verge, or they have a strong track record in certain industries, or potentially the founding team have exited multiple times. So it's like, your job is to make this proposition as safe and solid as possible, because remember, the person in front of you needs to drive a return for either the business, it's a VC, or if it's a bank, it needs to make interest from you strategically. Or, for example, if it's a pension fund or insurance fund, they need to give their customers returns on their investments. So I think that needs to be so like clear during your pitches, who you're pitching to, the audience of investment, because you can get all types of money. Yeah. But I would say 50% of our round was made up of pension and insurance fund monies, because it was secure as it can be growth pattern. And they could really see the industry was very stable, and there wasn't massive inflation or deflation in the markets or the TAM. It didn't just grow exponentially recently, because that poses risk. If it grows quickly, it could also fold quickly, you know, to stabilize. And I've learned a lot on, you know, the whole ecosystem of fundraising, from buzzwords to culture to everything else in between, which was really insightful. And then the other part is they like to see the other part, we've then raised banking funding, so finance, a credit line, which is a very difficult process because it makes you put things like personal guarantees, collateral, load of different things, your own skin in the game as backups. And that really, I think, will test any entrepreneur putting things like that on the table. And I won't say it didn't test me, but oh my God, like, would I do it again? Oh, possibly not. Like, you can really limbo in this, you know, like one day your net worth is positive and another is like a massive negative. But I was like, oh my God, I'm so far in this. I need to continue bet on myself. Yeah. If I don't bet on myself, how do I expect other people to bet on me?
Yeah.
Right. And I think also to the startup point, I think every investor will want to see the founder putting their own skin in the game, their own cash on the table. It's so much more transparent and it just shows that, okay, you're not just looking for my money to play with this. You've actually experimented with my money. Now you're looking with your own money. Now you're looking for my money to scale this or bring it to the next level. And like one of the things I think people overcomplicate valuations and the whole fundraising game of pre-money, post-money, all this kind of stuff. You have to align an objective of what you want to use the money for. I think that's the most brutal thing where I see a lot of people, and when the investors will give me feedback, what they really loved and they don't see it too often is that we're going to do X, Y, and Z. We've already done it at this scale. With your capital, we'll do it with this scale.
Yeah.
And this is what we're going to do with it. There's no like changing direction or figuring it out or pivoting. There's no plan B here, guys. This is the plan A. And that allowed, I think, for the investors to look at this and say, this is quite a safe investment.
Yeah.
It's quite a progressive investment for us as well. And like for them to then commit capital to your business, they were really able to see, like, your job is to show the pattern of success. The trend line needs to be like a little bit of a hockey stick.
Yeah.
Here, guys, we're just going to come in here, like with your capital, we could be here.
Yeah.
And that's what you got to show. And the faster you show that to them and the faster you're figuring it out, I think then the less amount it will cost you to raise that capital, whether it be equity or interest.
Yeah.
And I think that's like so important to nail down. And I would be incentivizing founders to get their idea, to shape it up, put some money in it, but try it out and really showcase this. I actually love that, like these programs like Enterprise Ireland, you know, the local enterprise offices, they bring you through a journey of thinking and bring you through a journey of support, and they connect and you know, give you grant aid and everything. I love that. And I think once you've figured it out and really understand what you're solving, then bringing it to, you know, a VC, a bank or a fund, that will be up to you what type of capital you're looking for. But I think then it's just a much better, you know, it's just a much better experience for both sides. Now, if you're a founder that has built and exited multiple businesses, it's going to be a no-brainer for you to go and fundraise.
Yeah.
And use other people's capital to help you accelerate it, because it's like horse racing. You're a guy with a good track. You're a horse with a good track record. Doesn't guarantee a win, but it'll guarantee a placement, or that you have a track record of placement. And I've heard something really insightful from a billionaire recently. It's easy to show all your wins, and it's harder to show all your failures, in one sense, when it comes to investment on the investor side. And most investors will show you all the wins. They'll never show you, you know, all the losses. And like, they could have invested in 100 companies and, you know, 5 actually went public, another 2 sold, but the rest possibly, you know, all failed and evaporated out of it, or they're just struggling to get on. But like, the way he was explaining to me is like, actually, you're an investor, you're very lucky to get your money back, but to double, triple it, or 100x it, my God, that's like the lotto. So it's actually not as easy on the investor side as people think, that, oh, you've just exited a business, just bet on me, just do this. I think you need to look at it from their point of view of, remember, they're committing their hard-earned capital or other people's hard-earned money into your venture. Yeah. Your job is to be a safe, you know, option for them, but an exciting option for them. Yeah. And I think that's your kind of vision and mission is so important, and the roadmap of progress. And show the milestones, make it exciting, make the numbers sound like, oh wow, this guy knows, you know, what he's talking about. He can see the next 5 steps ahead. And that's like I love the fact you're building a data-driven decision making with Magnate. The amount of founders that are just not even doing that, and then you have the likes of a deep search on ChatGPT that can literally be your research assistant. Such a bad use of people's time not going in and going deep diving into this.
Totally.
So I know that was a rant, but that's like my honest experience, opinion, the way we've structured it. And yeah, it was a massive learning. It wasn't easy, but it was definitely, I think we've done things to make it easier.
Yeah, no, I think that was really valuable. I think what you said there, and just to piggyback off it, like I think for Magnate, like what I desire by the time I end up raising, I want to go, here's the product, here's all the lessons we've learned, here's all the scars of what we learned to get here. Here's the route to markets, here's all the ones we've tested, here's the ones that are working, here's our cost of acquisition of customers, and here's our retention rate over several hundred plus thousand, whatever, hundreds, if not hopefully thousands of customers. And here's, like you said, here's a very clear roadmap of I'm raising 500 grand, a million, whatever, 2 million, however much. Here's exactly where the money's going to go. Here's what I anticipate the reaction to be. Here's because we're doing financial projections recently. Here's an idealistic, like here's like ambitious where I want to go, and here's like worst case scenario where I think we'll land. And if you like that trajectory and you believe that I can go do that, here you go.
Come on board and have some fun.
Yeah, and I think that's it. And then there's an element I think that people don't talk about. It's kind of get along with this person. Like this person, if you talk to them every week,
important.
Like if you've taken someone's money, and like I've heard horror stories. Yeah, I've heard great stories, heard horror stories. Have you
heard more horror stories than great?
I have, and that's why I like the idea of doing due diligence with investors, whether it be angel or funds or whatever. I like the idea of really being clear who you're going to be dealing with and what the rules of engagement are, because no matter how good a plan's put in business, things are going to change, and they need to have the trust in you that you can go pull it off, and the belief that we're on the common goal together, and it's going to be a windy road. And are you going to be with me or against me?
Right.
Because you're going to make my life harder than, by God,
this is going to be a very long process.
And also, I think the other thing as well, just to add on to your point as well, is what I've heard as well is, what's this person's objective? I was listening to someone recently, they took on some US money from an angel. And this angel was like, here, I want to get in pre-seed. I'm going to give you a check. I'm going to invest your seed in Series A, and I want to exit Series B. So I will keep retention of equity up until then. I don't want to go past Series B. I'm happy enough. I know I've made my money at that point. I will keep funding you. You'll get a very small check at the start. You'll get larger checks as we go along. But at that point, I want to exit because I will have made multiples and I'm happy out. And understanding where they land is really important. Because if you take, let's just say, for example, government money, they want to see money in the ecosphere and they want to see jobs created.
100%.
So they want to see the money deployed really quickly. So it's, the other thing as well is, where is the money coming from and what's their objective? And needs to make sure that is this okay? Because let's say you take a convertible loan out. So you take a loan, but it could convert to equity if they so decide, depending on the terms and conditions. Okay, am I okay if they convert to equity? Or am I okay if I need to pay that loan back? Does my business model support paying a loan back? Is it, whatever? So I think it's really important to understand exactly from the get-go of if they're coming on, what's their expectation, and do you think you can meet that? Because if those expectations misalign in anything in human communication, it can just go.
Oh my God! And like another thing that I think, you need solid legals, and you need to really make sure that the business and the people are so as bulletproof as possible.
Yeah.
Especially in the early stages and when you're preparing to fundraise. Yeah. Like you need to make sure that your cap table is on point. Your valuation is both reasonable, exciting, and affordable, right? Because remember, it's the first check you're getting. Like I've actually sent you this video. There's a guy fundraising at the moment, and they've sent me like a whole investment deck and a little tutorial video. And I seen the valuation, no money, nothing, $12 million valuation, and I was like, oh, that's a bit harsh with just like a product demo and like 12 million quid valuation. And there's me thinking that's harsh, and they've raised 1.2 million already. And I'm like, maybe I'm not at the games there, but I was like, I just think valuations are so overinflated at the moment. especially with businesses with no track record of either customers or revenue. By God, if you have customers and track record, you're now owning a percentage of the market. Now you have leverage. Now you have a talking point on this is why I'm worth this much money. Because saying that I'm the only person doing this in the world is sometimes obscene, sometimes reality. But you always have to question, why is my industry worth and growing at this amount of, every year? So, and I'm like, I'm in the service business. So like, my total addressable market is wide, but I got to make it smartly of like, I'm in digital, for example, I'm in education. Suddenly I'm no longer in the overall service TAM, I'm reducing, and TAM stands for total addressable market. Someone asked me if I'm ever using abbreviations just to kind of say it fair enough. And I'm all about you need to make sure that both your investors benefit, but the founder, because you are going to be in this business 3, 4, 5, 10 years, unless you get, acquired really quickly, you need to make sure as a founder, you're happy at the start and you can see what way you're going to give up equity, you're going to bring on more partners, and the people you're working with at the start, oh my God, I think it's like one of the most important key factors. Are you willing to carry this person for the next 10 years? And keep making them richer and richer, and are you happy to be diluting at this pace? Oh my, it's a whole topic of conversation that I think any founder can get really deep into, because everyone has such different experiences.
Yeah, well, no, and again, like it circles back to what we're talking about hiring is like, it's all about who you bring on board, investor or board or in staff. But I think that's probably, we'll probably wrap it there. I think that was definitely...
Yeah, that was a good conversation. So that was episode 20 of Built From Scratch. Guys, if you've made it this far, really appreciate it. Please like, subscribe. It means a lot to us. We're on all platforms and we're posting weekly. We did have some technical difficulties that we're working to overcome, but the show must go on, and Built From Scratch always comes home back where it started, in the office. So but yeah, really excited so far. We've gotten really good feedback, and again, thank you for watching and supporting.
We'll see you next week.